Let's go, baby. I see y'all.
Once beautiful American dream. We had an American dream.
How we feeling? How we feeling? How we feeling? Ronald, what's good? Vladimir, what's good?
Too often, for many years,
What's it?
decades, you didn't hear too much about.
This just got the thing on.
Our country and its taxpayers have been ripped off for more than
Davian, what's
60
good?
years. But it is not going to happen anymore. It's not going to happen.
We live, man. We live, y'all.
I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world. Reciprocal. That means they do it to us and we do it to them. Very simple. Can't get any simpler than that. This is one of the most important days, in my opinion, in
This just had the thing
American
on.
history.
Can we
It's
get
our
the camera in
economic
the TV in a little more?
independence. For years,
They can see it?
hardworking American citizens
Okay.
were forced to sit on the sidelines as other nations got rich and powerful, much of it at our expense.
What's
But
good,
now
family?
It's our turn to prosper, and in so doing, use trillions and trillions of dollars to
Let's see what he
reduce
got
our
to say, you
taxes
hear
and
me?
pay down our national debt, and it'll all happen very quickly. With today's action, we are finally going to be able to make America great again, greater than ever before.
You got a lag right here.
Jobs and factories will come roaring back into our country, and you see it happening already. We will supercharge our domestic industrial base. We will pry open foreign markets and break down foreign trade barriers. And ultimately, more production at home will mean stronger competition and lower prices for consumers. This will be indeed the golden age of America. It's coming back, and we're going to come back very strongly.
Golden age of America. That's what he say, y'all.
Joined on this momentous occasion by Vice President J.D. Vance. J.D., thank you.
We had a great day in the market today. Rally back.
Where are you, J.D.? No, that wasn't too hard to find. I was looking, he likes to take a low-key attitude, so usually be sitting right in front. He's gaining a lot of confidence, Mike, isn't it? And nearly my entire cabinet is here, as well as Speaker Mike Johnson, who's done an amazing job. And with the great success we had last night in Florida, we have a majority of 7. And 7's like a lot when we had it at 1, right? You've done a fantastic job. And many of the members of the House and Senate are with us. Senators, Congressmen, thank you all for being with us. We appreciate it. For decades, the United States slashed our trade barriers on other countries, while those nations placed massive tariffs on our products and created outrageous non-monetary barriers to decimate our industries. And in many cases, the non-monetary barriers were worse than the monetary ones. They manipulated their currencies, subsidized their exports, stole our intellectual property, imposed exorbitant VAT taxes to disadvantage our products, adopted unfair rules and technical standards, and created filthy pollution havens. They were absolutely filthy, but they
Pollution havens.
came to us and they said, we're violating, we should pay for it. It's all detailed in a very big report by the U.S. Trade Representative on foreign trade barriers, and I'll just hold it up for you. It's available, and you don't have to pay too much. As I understand it, you'll pay nothing. It's a lot of work for something, actually, because it's a special book. It's frankly, it's very upsetting when you read it, when you see what people have been doing to us for 30 years. This all happened with no response from the United States of America, none whatsoever. But those days are over. Let me offer just a few examples of the vicious attacks our workers have faced for so many years. The United States charges other countries only a 2.4 tariff on motorcycles.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Thailand and others are charging much higher prices, like 60%. India charges 70%. Vietnam charges 75%, and others are even higher than that. Likewise, until today, the United States has for decades charged a 2.5 tariff. Think of that, 2.5% on foreign-made automobiles. The European Union charges us more than 10% tariffs, and they have 20% VATs, much, much higher.
Damn.
India charges 70%, and perhaps worst of all are the non-monetary restrictions imposed by South Korea, Japan, and very many other nations as a result of these colossal trade barriers. 81% of the cars in South Korea are made in South Korea. 94% of the cars in Japan are made in Japan. Toyota sells 1 million foreign-made automobiles into the United States, and General Motors sells almost none. Ford sells very little. None of our companies are allowed to go into other countries. And I say that, friend and foe. And in many cases, the friend is worse than the foe in terms of trade. But such horrendous imbalances have devastated our industrial base and put our national security at risk. I don't blame these other countries at all for this calamity. I blame former presidents and past leaders who weren't doing their job. They let it happen, and they let it happen to an extent that nobody can even believe. That's why, effective at midnight, we will impose a 25% tariff on all foreign-made automobiles.
25%.
Brian, I'd like to have you come up here for a second, okay? I just see him sitting. He's been a fan of ours, and he
at midnight.
Business a lot better than the
at midnight.
All. Brian, say a few words.
I want y'all to look at the
Thank you, Mr. President. I grew up just north of Detroit, Michigan, in Macomb County.
Somebody say they don't want them big vehicles, but we don't want theirs either.
My first vote for president was for Ronald Reagan. I thought that was going to be the best president I ever saw in my lifetime until Donald J. Trump came along. I have watched my entire life, I have watched plant after plant after plant in Detroit and in the Metro Detroit area close. There are now plants sitting idle. There are now plants that are underutilized, and Donald Trump's policies are going to bring product back into those underutilized plants. There's going to be new investment. There's going to be new plants built, and the UAW members, and I brought 20 of them with me. They're sitting right over here. We support Donald Trump's policies on tariffs 100%. So, Mr. President, we can't thank you enough. And in 6 months or a year, we're going to begin to see the benefits. I can't wait to see what's happening 3 or 4 years down the road. Thank you, Mr. President.
He got it right from the beginning. He got it before almost anybody else. This group over there, they got it too. And, you know, we won the state of Michigan. We won.
I kind of ain't mad at that,
all
though.
of them. But we won Michigan by a lot, and I want to just thank you all. The auto workers were fantastic. The Teamsters were fantastic. Everyone was pretty good, I will tell you.
I'm not mad at that too much, you know what I'm saying?
You're going to be very happy very soon, and you probably.
I'm not mad at that too much, man. Like, we don't got none of our cars over there.
All of the ones that
I'm not kind of mad at that.
Day in, day out, you're seeing it.
You know what I'm
Nobody's
saying?
ever seen anything like that. With today's actions, we're also standing up for our great farmers and ranchers who are brutalized by nations all over the world. Brutalized.
I'm not mad at
Canada, by the way,
the car
imposes a
tariff.
250 to 300% tariff on many of our dairy products. They do the first can of milk.
Hey, look at after hours.
Little carton of milk at a very low price, but after that it gets bad, and then it gets up to 275, 300%.
QQQ is up after hours.
Charging, they say, oh, about 2%.
SPY up after hours.
But take a look at what happens down the road.
Not mad at that.
It's not a pretty picture, and we don't like it, and it's not fair. It's not fair to our farmers. It's not fair to our country. And with countries,
But American cars are super trash, though. That's cool.
Keep them going.
That's why you paying so much. But even the other cars, we paying for the parts that's coming over here too.
It's close to $200 billion a year. And I say, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? I mean, at what point do we say you got to work for yourselves, and you got to? This is why we have the big deficits. This is why we have that.
He lingering that, you hear me? He lingering that.
We're not taking it anymore. Through non-tariff barriers, the European Union bans imports of most American poultry. You understand? They say, we want to send you our cars. We want to
So
send
Toyota
you everything,
does
but we're
have
not gonna
plants,
take
but it's the
anything
parts,
that
the parts,
you have. Australia
the parts
bans,
that
and
come
they're
in.
wonderful people and wonderful everything, but they ban American beef, yet we imported $3 billion of Australian beef from them just last year alone. They won't take any of our beef. They don't want it because they don't want it to affect their farmers. And you know what? I don't blame them, but we're doing the same thing right now, starting at midnight tonight, I would say.
What you doing at midnight, bruh?
And China charges American rice farmers an overquota. It's called
Futures are pulling back.
rate of 65%. South Korea charges 50. Actually, they charge different, from 50% to 513%.
Futures pulling back.
Japan, our friend, charges us 700%, but that's because they don't want us selling.
Futures pulling. I mean, after hours pulling back.
Blame them, Madam Secretary. Agriculture, great job you did on eggs, by the way. The egg prices came down 50%. You got them down 50%. Once we got involved, they were going through the sky. The egg prices, they were going through the sky, and you did a fantastic job. Now we have lots of eggs, and they're much cheaper, down about 59% now, and they're going down further. We charge 2.8% for so many things that other countries are charging 200%, 300%, then 400% for. If imposing tariffs and protective barriers made nations poor, then every country on earth would be racing to eliminate these policies, and China would be the first on line. They run a very strong country, but they're not first in line, and the American people are paying a very big price. From 1789 to 1913, we were a tariff-backed nation, and the United States was proportionately the wealthiest it has ever been. So wealthy, in fact, that in the 1880s, they established a commission to decide what they were going to do with the vast sums of money they were collecting. We were collecting so much money so fast, we didn't know what to do with it. Isn't that a nice problem to have? What do you think, Marco? Good problem? Marco would love that problem. But we don't have that problem anymore, but we're not going to have it very much longer.
Costco eggs, $8.99.
They collected so much money, they actually formed a commission to determine what they were going to do with the money, who they were going to give it to.
He the greatest liar.
Then in 1913, for reasons unknown to mankind, they established the income tax so that citizens, rather than foreign countries, would start paying the money necessary to run our government. Then in 1929, it all came to a very abrupt end with the Great Depression, and it would have never happened if they had stayed with the tariff policy. It would have been a much different story. They tried.
Futures going. I mean, after hours market going down, y'all.
Country, but it was gone. It was gone. It was too late. Nothing could have been done. It took years and years to get out of that depression. Far longer than even FDR had that office right over there for a long period of time. The ramp system, it's rather intricate, was built because of him, and every time you walk up, you think of him, and he did a great job in many ways, but it lasted long beyond his terms, as you know. But it's not too late any longer, and we're going to start being smart, and we're going to start being very wealthy again. We're going to be wealthy as a country because they've taken so much of our wealth away from us. We're not going to let that happen. We truly can be very wealthy. We can be so much wealthier than any country. It's not even believable, but we're getting smart. Nearly a century later, in the face of unrelenting...
Bruh is telling a story up there.
The United States can no longer continue with a policy of unilateral economic surrender. We cannot pay the deficits of Canada, Mexico, and so many other countries.
Bruh is telling a story.
We can't do it anymore. We take care of countries all over the world. We pay for their military. We pay for everything they have to pay, and then when you want to cut back a little bit, they get upset that you're not taking care of them any longer. But we have to take care of our people, and we're going to take care of our people first, and I'm sorry to say that. And today we're standing up for the American worker, and we are finally putting America first. In Sleepy Joe Biden's last year in office, the United States hemorrhaged 100,000 manufacturing jobs, and the number was going
He
through
call
the
him,
roof,
man,
levels
Sleepy
never
Joe
seen
Biden.
before.
He always gonna
And
take
our
a
trade
shot at Joe
deficit
Biden, bro.
reached a record $1.2 trillion, which is unheard of. Since the beginning of NAFTA, the worst trade deal ever made. It was a horror show. I was able to terminate it. They all said you'd never be able to get it out. We had to get approval from Congress to get it terminated. We had to live with that deal. It was the worst trade deal ever made by far. But since the very beginning of NAFTA, our country lost 90,000 factories. Think of what that is, 90,000. Think about putting a map up and putting tax on it. You wouldn't have enough room. 90,000. I said, is that possible? We had it checked 4 different times, and it was actually somewhat higher than that. And 5 million manufacturing jobs were lost while racking
back up.
trade deficits of $19 trillion. That was the worst trade deal ever made. As a result of these,
Bro, he don't go off on Obama too much, but he be attacking Joe, yo. I think because Joe beat him.
Think of this, than the Americans own of their own foreign assets or other foreign assets. The United States can no longer produce enough antibiotics to treat our sick.
Antibiotics? I ain't never heard it said like that.
Countries to treat our sick. If anything ever happened from a war standpoint, we wouldn't be able to do it. We import virtually all of our computers, phones, televisions, and electronics. We used to dominate the field, and now we import it all from different countries. A single shipyard in China now produces more ships every year than all of the American shipyards combined. Think of that. And it was a business that we used to dominate. We used to dominate it totally. In short, chronic trade deficits are no longer merely an economic problem. They're a national emergency that threatens our security and our very way of life. It's a very great threat to our country. And for these reasons, starting tomorrow, the United States will implement reciprocal tariffs on other nations. It's been a long time since we even thought
Bro,
of that.
say a number.
We used to think about it a lot. We didn't think about it for many decades, and you see what's happened. For nations that treat us badly, we will calculate the combined rate of all their tariffs.
Antibiotics, that was crazy.
Forms of cheating. And because we are being very kind, we're kind people, very kind. You're not so kind when you got ripped off for your salaries. My co-worker friends and my Teamster friends and all of the unions that typically voted Democrat, they're not voting Democrat anymore because worker, whether union or non-worker, they're for the Republicans now. That's what happened. But we will charge them approximately half of what they are and have been charging us.
Okay.
So the tariffs will be not a full reciprocal. I could have done that. Yes.
So he charging half. Whatever you charge us, we charging half.
Do that. I'd like to see the chart if you have it. Could you bring it up, Howard? This is our great Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick. Thanks. So
I ain't mad at that. I ain't mad at that.
China, 67%. That's tariffs charged to the USA, including currency manipulation and trade barriers. So 67%, I think you can, for the most part, see it. Those with good eyes, with bad eyes. We didn't want to bring, it's very windy out here. We didn't want to bring out the big charts because it had no chance of standing.
Okay, so we charging China 34%. Uh-oh. European Union 20%.
So we're going to be charging a discounted reciprocal tariff of 34%. I think, in other words, they charge us, we charge them less. So how can anybody be upset? They will be because we never charge anybody anything. But now we're going to charge. European Union, they're very tough, very, very tough traders. You know, you think of European Union.
We charging Europe 20% on their 39%. Vietnam 46% on their 90%.
We're going to charge them 20%, so we're charging them essentially half. Vietnam, great negotiators, great people. They like me, I like them. The problem is they charge us 90%.
Jose, that chicken come from Vietnam, Jose.
Taiwan, where they took all of our computer chips and semiconductors. We used to be the king, right? We were everything. We had all of it. Now we have almost none of it, except the biggest company is coming in.
Ooh, hey y'all, I'm about to tell y'all,
get their approvals.
we gotta watch now.
Amazing company, Mr. Wei,
Ooh,
one of the great companies of the world, actually.
South Korea 25%, Switzerland 31%, Indonesia 32%, Malaysia 24%,
Japan, very, very tough.
United Kingdom. They charge us 10, he charging them 10.
I think they're very smart in doing it. I blame the people that sat right in that Oval Office.
Cambodia.
Right
Damn, what we buying from Cambodia? 97%. God dang.
26%, and much higher for certain items like cars, little items like cars. 46%, we're charging them 24%. India, very, very tough, very, very tough. The Prime Minister just left. And he's a great friend of mine, but I said, you're a friend of mine, but you're not treating us right. They charge us 52%.
A lot of people went to the office and really met with him, you hear me?
And it was only 7 years ago when I came in.
Somebody said, I bought some spy puts at the close.
Hundreds of billions of dollars from China in tariffs. And they understood, honestly. President Xi understood. He said, look, I understand.
NVIDIA was 112.
We're going to have to go through a little tough love, maybe, but they all understand. They're ripping us off, and they understood it. Prime Minister of Japan.
Hey, why they took the live thing off?
He was a fantastic man. He was unfortunately taken from us, assassination. But I went to him and I said, Shinzo, we have to do something. And trade is not fair. And he said, I know that. And he was a great gentleman. He was a fantastic man, but he understood immediately what I was talking about. I said, Shinzo, we have to do something. He said, I know that. And we worked out a deal, and it would have been a much better deal, but frankly, there were many years left on the deal that was made previous to my getting there, but it was something.
When bruh brought that out, the market said, God dang. But look, when you look at this, bruh, like, I'm not mad at that, bruh. Like, I ain't even gonna lie.
7%. We're going to bring it down to 49. They made a fortune with the United States of America. United Kingdom, 10%, and we'll go 10%. So we'll do the same thing. South Africa, 60%, 30%, and they've got some bad things going on in South Africa. We're paying them billions of dollars, and we cut the funding because a lot of bad things are happening in South Africa. The fake news ought to be looking at it. They don't want to report.
Bro, what are we getting from Bangladesh that's charging 74%?
Bangladesh is 74%. So you see what's going on. Pakistan, 58%. Sri Lanka, 88%. So what we're doing is we're taking not the full, we could take the full 88%. Thanks a lot. He's doing a very good job. How's he doing, huh? I think you better take it with you. It's not going to last very long. It's going to follow you down with the wind. I brought a hat just in case it got too windy, but would anybody like a hat? I'm not giving you.
He's lying. Everyone from other countries said, okay, we're good with what you want to do.
Thank you, fellas. Get it. That's it. That's it. They deserve it more than our cabinet.
Well, there you go.
Our cabinet
Mark it down 2% after hours.
You see the numbers. The numbers are so disproportionate. They're so unfair. At the same time, we will establish a minimum baseline tariff of 10%. You notice that on the chart? And that'll be on other countries to help rebuild our economy and to prevent cheating. So we're going to have a minimum of cheating, and we're going to be very severe on the people that at the gate that watch.
Mark was up 1%. He picked that damn sign up.
A lot of bad things happening at the gate because the money is so enormous that you're talking about. There's never been probably anything like it in terms of the enormity, and there are a lot of bad things happen at the people that do the check-in, and they're looking at 10-year jail sentences if they do play. We're going to treat them so good, but if they cheat, the repercussions are going to be extremely strong. Foreign nations will finally be asked to pay for the privilege of access to our market, the biggest market in the world. We're right now the biggest market in the world. We had a great country 4 years ago in terms
look at that
of
drop.
economics. We were doubling up on China. We were doing so well. Nobody was going to catch us, but So much of it slipped away over the last 4 years under Biden. I campaigned on this policy throughout last year, and today that promise
he blamed Biden for
made,
everything.
It was also a promise, as you know, that was kept. Promises made, promises kept.
It's gonna be funny when the borough abandons the dollar. They ain't abandoning no dollar, man.
To any company that objects to our common sense reciprocal tariffs, again, reciprocal, back and forth, and I call this kind reciprocal. This is not full reciprocal. This is kind reciprocal. But what we do is we cut it in half. We charge them. My answer is very simple. If they complain, if you want your tariff rate to be zero, then you build your product right here in America, because there is no tariff if you build your plant, your product in America. And we've seen companies coming in like we've never seen before. Likewise to all of the foreign presidents, prime ministers, kings, queens, ambassadors, and everyone else who will soon be calling to ask for exemptions from these tariffs. I say, terminate your own tariffs, drop your barriers, don't manipulate your currencies. They manipulate their currencies like nobody can even believe, which is a bad, bad thing and very devastating to us. And start buying tens of billions of dollars of American goods. Tariffs give our country protection against those that would do us economic harm. And many people were looking to do us economic harm. Maybe not so obviously, but they were doing tremendous economic harm. But even more importantly, they will give us growth. These tariffs are going to give us growth like you haven't seen before. And it'll be something very special to watch. I am so looking forward. And Brian, it's going to happen even faster than you said. You know, you might say, but it's already started. It's already started. Work's already begun on plants all around the country, and you see that it's before. These are big, rich companies. We have $61 billion started on a big plant going up. It's going to be announced over the next 2 days, and they already started work. Many of these the biggest companies in the world, they've committed to build, sir.
I don't think the market is overreacting.
And they wanted to know if they could have a press conference. I do as many as I can. I'm pretty busy trying to stop Russia and Ukraine and the Middle East. We got to stop that. We got to stop the Houthis.
Products will not be made here like the old days. It costs too much. Good luck. That's the purpose.
Out of the water.
That's the purpose of it.
They get a kick out of it, but
the purpose is to.
Out of it now, are they, Mr. Secretary? They're not getting.
One of the things that hurt us was we outsourced so much stuff.
Just a short list of some of
so
the companies that
products are gonna get, because people not gonna want to pay that money, or they're gonna get tired of paying that.
This is a company that built its factories and its plants in China. Apple is going to spend $500 billion. They never spent money like that here. They're going to build their plants here. SoftBank, OpenAI, and Oracle, great companies, are investing $500 billion almost immediately. NVIDIA, a hot company, is investing hundreds of billions of dollars. They just announced. TSMC, the biggest, most important company in the world of chips from Taiwan, with no investment from us, is investing $200 billion. And they said the reason was, number one, the election of November 5th, and number two, the tariffs. They don't want to pay the tariffs, and the way they're not paying it is to build their plant here. So we're going to go from almost no percentage. We used to have 100% of the chip market. Now it's all in Taiwan. Almost all of it's in Taiwan.
NVIDIA got up 2% today.
And
NVIDIA got up to
100%. We lost it because of people in that office that didn't do their job. They allowed it to be stolen from us. Johnson & Johnson, great company, $55 billion. Eli Lilly, $27 billion. Meta is investing $500 billion. Wow. DeMac is investing $20 billion. CMA, CGM, $20 billion. And then you have Merck and Clarios, Stellantis, General Motors, GE Aerospace, Honda, Nissan, Hyundai are all putting in billions and billions of dollars, and they're committed 100%. And we've never had, and this is after 2.5 months. This is after just a short, this all took place as soon as we came out with what everybody wanted to do. You know, I watched a gentleman today on television. He used to work with Lee Iacocca, a very respected automobile person, and he said, you know, because they're asking people, they try and get as many negative people as they can, but they can't find them too much. It's pretty hard to find in terms of what we're doing, especially when they see all this investment. They said, so tell me, what do you think of what Trump is doing from the automobile standpoint? He said, I can't believe it. Somebody is finally, he's an older guy, real pro, really top guy, with Lee Iacocca. He said, I never thought I'd see the day when this would happen, where somebody had the courage to go and do what has to be done. This is transforming our nation. Our entire nation is going to be transformed, not only with the cars, but in every single other item that's built. We're going to become an industrial powerhouse. And he said that so beautifully today. In fact, I'm going to find out, I'm going to get a tape, and Bruce, I'm going to get that tape, and I'm going to send it to you out in Long Island, and you're going to play it for the people. And all your union workers and your non-union workers out there, you got a pretty even split. But we have, so far, it looks like we're going to have about $6 trillion of investments, and you wouldn't do that in years in this country over the last number of years. $6 trillion, and that's going to be much higher by the end of the year. And think of what $6 trillion is. You wouldn't have even a small percentage of that under this other system. We're going to be an entirely different country, and it's going to be fantastic for the workers. It's going to be fantastic for everyone. There will never have been a transformation of a country like the transformation that's already happening in the United States of America. It's an incredible thing to watch, and it's incredible to meet with the top people, people that you read about, very wealthy people, or people that are great managers and executives and presidents of big public companies, and to watch the enthusiasm they have now that they didn't have. They gave up on our country. They went to foreign countries and they built. Companies are pouring into our country at levels never seen before, with jobs and money to follow, and it's really beautiful. In the coming days, there will be complaints from the globalists and the outsourcers and special interests and the fake news. Always, fake news will always complain. But never forget, every prediction our opponents made about trade for the last 30 years has been proven totally wrong. They were wrong about NAFTA. They were wrong about China. They were wrong about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which would have been a disaster if I didn't terminate it. If I didn't terminate that, United Auto Workers, you would have had no jobs in this country. You would have had no jobs. It was all going to other countries. In my first term, they said tariffs would crash the economy. Instead, we built the greatest economy in the history of the world. And again, I have great respect for President Xi of China, great respect for China, but they were taking tremendous advantage of us, and I commend them for that. I say, hey, if you can get away with it, that's okay. But, you know, they understand exactly what's happening, and they probably, most of them are saying it's about time they did something, but and they're going to fight, and they're going to fight fair. Everyone's going to fight. You know, it's like, I say to the leaders, look, you got to take care of your country, but we have to start taking care of our country now. We can't do what we've been doing for the last 50 years. From the day of my election, the stock market went up in my first term 88%, with NASDAQ going up 155%, more than any president has ever had in any term in office, by far. And I think we're going to blow that away, and maybe the numbers won't show, but I think they're going to show much better than even those numbers. But what you're going to see is you're going to see activity, that empty, dead sites, factories that are falling down. Those factories will be knocked down, and they're going to have brand new factories built in their place. They're not only talking about renovating, they're talking about brand new, the best anywhere in the world, the biggest anywhere in the world. I have a friend who builds car plants, and I said, I want to see the biggest and the best. He said, well, we have to go to Mexico. And I said, no, I want to see it in the United States. He said, we're not building them in there. This is a year and a half ago during the campaign. He said, we're not building it. You have to go to Mexico. When I was starting to decide to run, and I went to #1 in the polls very rapidly, I want to say, like, let's say in the first hour. And then shortly thereafter, it looked like I was going to win, and the fake news was saying, oh, no, don't do this. What they don't know is if I didn't win, they would have really been in trouble, because nobody wants to read them anyway. But I tell you what, when it looked like I was going to win, I announced that I was going to be doing exactly what we're talking about today. Great consistency, actually, because I've been talking about it for 40 years. but because I saw what was happening 40 years ago. If you look at my old speeches when I was young, very handsome, my old speeches, and that people would say I'd be on a television show, I'd be talking about how we were being ripped off by these countries. I mean, nothing changes very much. The only thing that changed were the countries, but nothing really changes. But so it's such an honor. It's such an honor to be finally able to do this. If you look at China, I took in hundreds of billions of dollars in my term, hundreds of billions. They never paid 10 cents to any other president, and yet they paid hundreds of billions, so much so that Biden couldn't do anything. They wanted to try and terminate it because he had a very special relationship with China. You know what the relationship was? He had a special relationship. But the numbers were so big, that they couldn't do it. So they did ease it up. They did things that they shouldn't have done. They made it a lot more comfortable for them, but they couldn't do it.
Nah, I ain't getting sleepy. I'm just thinking about what's ahead.
And we were on our way to doing something like incredible. And then we had a very bad election happen, a lot of bad things happened. So when I said we got to do it again, I said we have to make it too big to rig, and we made it too big to rig, and we won in records, and it was a monumental win. And it was such an honor to see so many of you, like Brian and your friends, here with us to celebrate, and to more importantly celebrate what we're doing, because that wouldn't be a full celebration if we didn't do this, because this will be an entirely different country in a short period of time. It'll be something the whole world will be talking about it. The critics made the very tired predictions earlier this year, but in February, core inflation dropped to the lowest rate in 4 years. And the price of eggs, as you know, just in a month and a half, we were there for 4 weeks. And the first week, I got blamed for eggs. I said, I just got it. They said eggs have gone up at like 250%, and you can't get eggs. And they were going crazy, and I said, I just got here. And then we got to work on eggs, we got to work on everything, and our great Secretary of Agriculture, you did a fantastic job, Brooke Rollins, you did a fantastic job. And as I said before, the price of eggs dropped now 59%, and they're going down more, and the availability is fantastic. They were saying that for Easter, please don't use eggs. Could you use plastic eggs? I said, we don't want to do that. We want to, and you really came through. It's an amazing job. Thank you very much, Brooke. You did great.
Hey.
Likewise, an old-fashioned term that we use, groceries. I used it on the campaign. It's such an old-fashioned term, but a beautiful term, groceries. It sort of says a bag with different things in it. Groceries went through the roof, and I campaigned on that. I talked about the word groceries for a lot. And energy costs now are down, groceries are down, gasoline is way under $3, and people are beginning to be able to buy things and live again. We brought prices way down. We created 10,000 already in a few weeks, new manufacturing jobs, and it was that took place in 1 month.
Do y'all think the market is just reacting and then it'll get back, or do you think, like, yo,
4 years, but after transitioning over to Sleepy Joe, it went from almost non-existent to the highest in the history of our country. They're the highest inflation in the history of our country.
hey, y'all hit the like button for me, y'all.
Spending and bad policy, and a lot of bad things happened. How about allowing millions and millions and millions of people to pour into our country with open borders, where it's so sad to see even now. And I see our great secretary you have done. Stand up, please, Christy. Stand up. Christy Noem and Tom Holman. These people are doing a great job, but gotten them out in records. We have problems with judges that don't want them to go out. They want Tren de Aragua, and they want MS-13, the most vicious gangs ever. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Absolute killer gangs. They kill people. They don't even think about it. And we put them out, and we have judges now, radical left judges that they don't want them to go out. They want them to even be brought back. Let's bring them back. You've done a fantastic job, and please thank everybody. Homeland Security, thank everybody. Appreciate it. And we now have a border that's the best border that we've ever had, even better than it was My first term. My first term we did good, but this one we really specialized in. We've done really well. And we had records then. We had the best, safest border. 4 years ago, we had the best border there ever was. And now we have, you've actually matched it and done even better. And we're going to get it down the right way. And we want people, by the way, to come into our country, but we want them to come in through a legal process. We want them to come in legally. We need more people. We need people to run these plants and to help the auto workers and the Teamsters and the non-union people and everybody else. But we need people and the farmers. And we're going to let people come in, but they want to come in. We want them to come in legally. They have to have the capability of loving our country, not people that hate our country. We don't want them in our country. And now we're going to pass the largest tax cuts in American history, and that's where we're relying on Mike and John Thune. And we will not cut Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid benefits, and the Democrats will, because if they got in, the entire economy would collapse. This country was heading for a collapse under the people that you saw. They were horrible. I think one of the reasons people like the job, I have my highest approval ratings because I think they're comparing me to the worst administration in the history of our country, so I appreciate that at least. But Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and Senate Majority Leader, appreciate it, Mike. John Thune have been fantastic, by the way. But they've been working tirelessly on taking the next step to pass the plan for our one big, beautiful bill. I'd like to name it that if you can. One big, I made that statement about 6 months ago, and everybody calls it one big, beautiful bill. And it will be that. It'll have everything, the big tax cuts and every incentive there is. And it'll be fantastic. And by the way, for the cars, we're asking for an interest deduction on a loan. So if you build the car, only in America we do it, Brian. If the car's not built in America, you don't get the interest rate deduction. But if you build the car in America, if you buy a car, if it's built in America, then you get an interest rate deduction, tax deduction, and that's a big thing. That's going to be a big thing. I think that's going to pay for itself very quickly, that deduction. Never happened. We've never had anything like that before. Somebody said, where do you get the idea? Because it's so basic. You would think that would have happened a long time ago. It never did, and
how y'all feel about that?
It didn't, because now I can say that was my idea. But we're going to get us closer to the debt extension. We have to get the debt extension passed, and I know you're going to be able to do that, Mike, and it's very important that you do that. And all of the other things that the Senate budget plan gives us, along with working, because I know they're working together, John and Mike, and the two bills are going very well together. We need to get our shared priorities done, including certain permanent tax cuts. We want the tax cuts to be permanent, spending cuts, energy and historic investments in defense, border, and so much more. We're covering everything. These will be phenomenal. There'll be no bill like this going to straighten. One bill is going to straighten out our country for many, many years to come.
Do y'all think the market is overreacting right now, or do y'all think it has right to be down right now?
Because they're not getting what they were exactly looking for, but they're getting a lot. They'll never, if we get this done, it'll be the most incredible bill ever passed in the history of our Congress and Senate and congressmen, the senators and the congressmen, many of whom are here today, will be very proud.
Well, I will say this.
I really believe that.
People thought he was bluffing. He ain't bluffing.
We're going to
I guess he proved it. To the people that thought he was bluffing.
Thank you, Rick.
What you got?
Oh, look at all of our senators. Oh, boy.
I guess he proved them wrong.
But I won't like them so much if they don't get this bill done. That's a great group, and Congressman, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Tremendous people. The Senate plan has my complete and total support, and the House plan likewise is very similar. They're moving along pretty much at the same clip, and as soon as you're ready, you'll show it to me, and I'm sure it'll have my support, Mike. Every Republican congressman and senator must unify. We have to unify. We can't be separated. We have to get it done. We have to get absolutely everything we can, and we have to take care of
Damn, bro. April was starting off so good.
Take care of the American people first. We need to pass this bill immediately. Get it done, including debt extension. From this day on, we're not going to let anyone tell us that American workers and families cannot have the future that they deserve. We're going to produce the cars and ships, chips, airplanes, minerals, and medicines that we need right here in America. The pharmaceutical companies are going to become roaring back. They're coming roaring back. They're all coming back to our country, because if they don't, they got a big tax to pay. And if they do, I'll be very happy, and you're going to be very happy, and you're going to be very safe. We're going to build our future with American hands, with American heart, American steel, and we're going to build it with American pride like we used to. We're approaching our 100th day as president, and have been given credit by a lot of people, actually, even some of the fake news. Can you believe it? Which in this case hopefully isn't fake, for having done more in that time than any other administration in the history of our country in the first 100 days. I think we've had an amazing, in terms of what we've done, what we've gotten accomplished. I'd like to see if we can get that war ended, and another war from not starting in the Middle East. We have to get Russia. They're losing 2,000 on average, 2,500 people a day, young people, soldiers, Russian. Think of that, 2,500 through some days, but on average, probably over about a 1 week period, it's 2,712, they say. They're losing those soldiers. They're dying. They're being decimated. And they're not from our country, but they're from other countries. But they're human beings. They're from Russia. They're from Ukraine in this period, most of them. And we're going to get it stopped. It's a senseless war that would have never happened if I was president, and it shouldn't be allowed to go on. And I think we're being given good cooperation by Russia and by Ukraine, but we have to get it stopped. It's humanity. It's humanity. It's a terrible thing. This will be a very big moment. I think you're going to remember today. It's going to be a free nation that we're dealing with. We're going to have a very free and beautiful nation. It's going to be Liberation Day in America, and it's going to be a day that hopefully you're going to look back in years to come, and you're going to say, you know, he was right. This has turned out to be one of the most important days in the history of our country. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
How y'all feel? Do y'all feel liberated?
It's President Trump at the Rose Garden at the White House. It looks like he is preparing to perhaps sign this executive order tied to this very sweeping policy that was just announced. What he called, quote, kind reciprocal tariffs, a baseline 10% tariff across the board on countries with the 60 worst offenders, tiered structure. So China, for example, including tariffs, currency manipulation, and trade barriers, charging a, quote, discounted 34% tariff. Layer that on top of a 20% existing tariff, you get to 54%. EU, 20%. Vietnam, 46%. Taiwan, 32%. We can go down the list here. Fentanyl tariffs on Canada and Mexico staying in place, with the exception of USMCA compliant goods, and all of this going into effect at midnight tonight.
And the market reaction after hours, I've never seen anything like it. This, I think fair to say, is worse than the worst case scenario of the tariffs that many in the market expected the president to impose. You laid out a number of the percentages there, and there's some question of how the administration calculated the percentages that they're responding to in each of these cases. Are they adding in value-added taxes? He talked about non-tariff barriers as well. So I think while many were hoping that this would eliminate uncertainty, there's going to be more uncertainty in the market, and from those watching policy tomorrow on, well, if countries push back on how these non-tariff barriers were calculated, will there be wiggle room here? Exactly when do these go into effect? How quickly are companies going to have to adjust their pricing? So many questions.
Heavy trading here in overtime after hours, including in the ETFs that track the major averages. We've seen a 4% swing from up 1% to down 3% in the QQQ. We're going to get to Megan Casella at the White House for more.
Hey guys, so hearing a lot there from the president. You guys wrapped up a lot of it, but a lot of those questions there are some of the ones that we had a chance to talk with White House officials about just before this event began. We can talk about it now that the event is over. On the first point of when these tariffs will take effect, I'll tell you that universal baseline tariff of 10%, that is set to take effect on April 5th at midnight. So just a few days there for companies and countries to get ready for that one. The higher reciprocal tariffs that are more country specific, there's a little bit longer lead time there, but those are set to take effect on April 9th, so a little bit longer to go. But as John mentioned, this is a very sweeping way of doing this that goes much further than some of the options that we were talking about. It's not the 20% across the board. That 10% baseline is there so that companies or countries can't just move to other countries. They're trying to avoid transshipment, as it's called. But otherwise, higher tariffs, some of these 34% on China plus the 20% that's already in effect, 20% on the EU, 46% on Vietnam. We've been flashing all these rates up there. So sweeping measures here. I also just want to note there are a couple of exemptions. One is that for Canada and Mexico, they continue to face the 25% fentanyl tariffs that have now been in place since a couple of months ago, and USMCA compliant goods will continue to remain exempt from that. So no changes really for Canada and Mexico. A couple of others here that I want to mention is that the White House, I want to emphasize this point. The White House
said,
is
Chap,
not
you all right?
deals on this, and
Yeah, I'm just.
What could other countries do to try to avoid this? White House officials were asked about this, and one responded, quote, "This is not a negotiation. This is a national emergency," and went on to talk about how what they are most concerned about is the non-tariff barriers like the VAT, like the currency manipulation, like labor standards, sweatshops they mentioned, some environmental standards that they don't think should be in place. So it doesn't make it seem likely that if other countries are reaching out now saying, we'll lower our tariffs, will you reduce this? It does not look likely at this time, guys.
Okay, Megan Casella, thank you. Yields lower, stocks lower, dollar weaker, oil higher, gold at a new record. That does it for us here at Overtime.
Fast Money starts now.
I just want to hear the conversation now.
In the heart of New York City's Times Square, this is Fast Money. Here's what's on tap tonight. President Trump announcing reciprocal tariffs on countries around the world. 34% on China, 20% on the European Union, 46% on Vietnam, and the list goes on and on. We'll break down the impact on the economy, the markets, and a number of key sectors straight ahead. Plus, shares of RH getting crushed after hours, down close to 25% after missing on the top and the bottom line and issuing weak guidance. What this says about the spring housing market coming up. And later, our Elon's days in Washington numbered. We'll test the shareholders' cheer. CoreWeave continuing its post-IPO rebound, up over 50% this week. And Newsmax comes crashing back to earth. And I mean crashing. The details straight ahead. I'm Melissa Lee, coming to you live from Studio B at the NASDAQ. On the desk tonight.
What I will say is,
Dan Nathan and Guy Adami. But we start off with a breaking news out of Washington. President Trump just wrapping up an event at the Rose Garden where he laid out his tariff plans. Stocks moving sharply lower as he spoke in the last hour. The SPY down more than 1% right now. Q's down as much as 3% at the lows after hours. Let's get to Megan Casella, who's got all the details. Megan.
Hey, Melissa, absolutely. A lot coming out from the president just in the last hour. The top line being that the president is implementing a 10% across the board baseline.
He told us he was going to do it.
Countries. That's effective on April 5th. So just
People thought he was lying.
Almost all imports will be subject to at least a 10% tariff. He is also going country by country for about 60 of what the White House is calling the worst offenders and imposing a higher reciprocal tariff against those countries. To give you a little bit of a sampling, China subject to a 34% tariff on top of the 20% tariff that's already in effect. The EU subject to a 20% tariff.
And bro did it in a way where you can't even go to another country to try to escape it. No, you getting it over there too. He hit everybody. You get a tariff, you get a tariff, you get a tariff, you get a tariff, you get a tariff. Or you want to go over there? It's bad over there too.
There are a few exemptions. For Canada and Mexico, they will continue to face the 25% fentanyl tariffs, and the USMCA compliant goods will continue to be exempt there. So no changes for those two countries. Also specific goods, autos, auto parts, steel, and aluminum, and some of the other ones that we expect to be forthcoming, copper, lumber, pharmaceuticals, and semiconductors. All of those goods specifically will also be exempt from the reciprocal regime, but will face their own tariffs, so far set at about 25%. Just finally, Melissa, I would flag the White House does not look like they're messing around on this. They are not really welcoming negotiations with other countries. They say if other countries reach out and offer to lower their tariffs, they're ignoring the decades of trade barriers that they've had up. They're mostly worried about non-tariff barriers, and they don't seem willing to lower these tariffs in exchange. Melissa?
Megan, didn't the press secretary just today, I think, say that President Trump will always take a phone call? So what's the message here?
That was yesterday, absolutely. Yeah. I know, so they want to look like they're open to talking, and we will have to see in the coming days. There's not a lot of lead time that allows countries to make deals here, but maybe the tariffs could take effect and then they start to come down. We also heard the Treasury Secretary told lawmakers just yesterday that these would be the maximum level of tariffs and they would come down from here. We do have to wait and see on that. I think the next step is that countries might start to announce retaliation. We will see at that point how this White House responds and if they try to go higher or if they try to start a conversation.
That baseline 10% across goods, is that to prevent companies from country shopping, tariff shopping, so to speak?
Yes, that's exactly right. They say they're really concerned, especially in the first term, when the tariffs were mostly focused on China. We know this from companies and from industry as well, that a lot of folks were looking and setting up shop in Vietnam or Cambodia. That's what they want to cut down on, is that transshipment. They say at least there's 10% across the board. Yes, you might still leave China if there's a 54% tariff there to go somewhere else, but if that's at least the baseline, they're hoping it cuts down on that to really send a message here.
All right, Megan, thank you. Megan Casella joining us from the White House. With so much news, it is Liberation Day, as it's coined, Guy, and we got a list of tariffs. So what do we make of it? We saw the market reaction, no surprise, lower in the after hours so far.
No surprise. Now, the day actually sort of made sense. In the market round, we talked about this sort of yesterday. Personally, I thought there'd be sort of a pullback, not as draconian, not as robust. The market would like that. We would continue to rally. The bond market would sell off. To a certain extent, we saw that during the day. Obviously, a lot of things have been reversed now. So what do you try to make of this? Well, Treasury Secretary Bessent and President Trump have asked for lower rates in terms of 10-year. An announcement like this might get them to lower rates. The question is, at what cost? That 5,500 level in the S&P clearly is going to start to come into play.
My partner on Wall Street just texted me and said, this dude is a moron.
Despite what they say about, we're not going to negotiate, you can't call us, or things in place where a week or so from now, there's countries at the White House or the Rose Garden that are acquiescing, and there's some sort of detente in terms of what's going on. So maybe this is sort of act 2 or 3 in a 5-act play.
Yeah, I think the debate, and a lot of folks have been talking about this, is this policy or is it politics, right? And so at the end of the day, it's kind of what Guy's just talking about, is like, are they going to take the calls, to your question? Are they looking to do deals? And when I think about how targeted some of these tariffs are and how basically whatever they come back with, these countries that are being targeted, a lot of these are really in Trump country. If you think about it, they're in red states. You think about what happened with farmers going back to 2018, the trade war. I mean, they collected tariffs. They collected tens of billions of dollars in tariffs from farmers. And then you know what they ended up doing? They ended up giving it back to them in relief, So you're going to do that to the auto workers in Michigan. I mean, the list goes on and on. So at the end of the day, I'm probably more in Guy's camp that, they're talking a tough game here. I think they probably want to do some deals. A lot of these countries are going to come to the table and say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And they probably won't end up doing them, So at the end of the day, I think it's one of those things where maybe...
All right, here's my question.
I think they're going to have to get focused on the stock market pretty soon.
We were talking about certainty and whether or not we have any more certainty. As Megan had mentioned, even though we know these country-specific and the baseline tariff regime that we will operate in, we don't know the sector-specific ones, such as on pharma, which will face tremendous tariffs because many of the raw materials...
Do you think Donald Trump will negotiate with other countries, or y'all think he gonna just stay right there?
Autos, we saw a turnaround in the after-hour session. Somewhat. GM was down as much as 3%. It's now down 1%. You're pointing out also the Mexican peso.
Yes, and that was sort of, I actually rallied a little bit. I don't know where it is right this minute, but I think, do we have certainty, not on the things that you said? Yeah. Do we have certainty on what the worst case scenario is? I think we do. I think this is the biggest tariffs we would see. I agree with both Guy and Sunshine Dan that it is very possible, and probably more than 50% likely that we do
My
see
guy.
some movement there. It's interesting after the first round of tariffs going years
Hello?
back, how there was such a push to leave China manufacturing, go elsewhere, go to Vietnam, go to Thailand. Well, okay, so that's sort of been thrown into flux. I think, you're right to see the 10-year, could the 10-year come down and inflation go up? Both of those things seem likely. So that's sort of interesting. And I think, so who does it benefit? I think it benefits a Walmart over a Target, but doesn't absolutely benefit either of them. So if you've got power.
Y'all think he gonna negotiate? Y'all think people gonna come negotiating?
Not better off than you were yesterday.
Or,
I'm not the debt statesman, so me trying to parse whether this is going to be policy or
because you know people gonna come.
I just think for me it's probably over my head and outside of my level of interest. What I am concerned about is how this is likely going to affect the stock market and what is Trump's willingness to affect the stock market. And I think here we have seen that this is probably worse than the worst case that was modeled in. And so even if we do start to see some reprieve from what the levels that have been indicated right now, what is likely going to be the stock market response? I think any presidential put, I think you might at least want to rethink whether that is actually in play. And if you are in fact getting a lower 10-year yield or 7 to 10-year yield because of lower growth expectations, I think you also want to think about how we're arriving at said destination point. I will say, yes, across the board, you've got a mix. We thought perhaps maybe we're going to get one sweeping tariff level, or perhaps you're going to get, but we've gotten a mixture of both, which I do think, I do think my other panelists are making a strong point in terms of them kind of kitchen sinking it. However, given his reluctance to pull back despite what we have seen in a weaker stock market, tells me that perhaps he is a bit more emboldened than we're giving credit for being.
The other thing we don't know is how this will impact the economy, because we don't know how long these tariffs will be in place and how they will be taken by the consumer. Let's get more on the economic impact from these tariffs. Bring in Steve Leisman. Steve, in terms of what you've seen economists model in, is this worse? Is this better?
I think it's worse. I don't know what the average tariff is. Maybe we could just pull up. I asked him to make a board on.
My partner said he keeps saying everything gonna be fine, bro. The market's gonna be at zero. I'm laughing, brother. Man, my account gonna be hit tomorrow.
All of our imports will have a
man, SPY put. Tomorrow we doing puts on everything, man. We doing puts on everything.
I believe plus 20. In any event, people modeled in 20%, and they were detracting from GDP. They were adding to the CPI. This just seems like the president having his own sort of school of economics that's different from everybody else. And he said that the economists were all wrong, but in fact they would insist they were absolutely right.
Bro, here's what I don't understand. How the hell is all the economists wrong and you right, bro?
Don't mirror foreign trade barriers and ignore those imposed by the United States. For all the President Trump's talk of a new golden age, this huge tax increase will inevitably result in higher prices.
Oh my! I'm about to get hated on. How am I gonna get hated on?
And diminish exports and manufacturing output. So it is not a good forecast or a good look from the economists and the forecasters. And as you can see from Wall Street on these tariffs here, the president believes this will lead to a golden age of growth and increase in manufacturing. Economists believe it will lead to lower growth and higher inflation, and really puts the Fed in a pickle here. You can see that there was something of a bump, however, in the probabilities of Fed rate cuts, and I think that comes from a view of greater economic weakness, and they believe it will be so great, I think, that the Fed will be forced to ignore the surge in inflation. There are the probabilities a touch higher than they have been. That December number for the third cut had been as low as 60, even 50%. But now that he's very serious about these tariffs, you have the market saying, hey, the Fed's going to cut 3 times because I believe not that the inflation is going to be low, but that the economy is going to be that bad.
Steve, it's Karen. Thanks for being on. So getting to that Fed point a little bit more, if you're the Fed, do you need to see the inflation first before you see how the weakness in the economy before you're going to cut? Because I think of Jay Powell thinking of inflation as the single most important thing he wants to not have as his legacy.
Well, I think there's some division on the Fed right now.
My Patreon group said, Trap, we're going to need emotional support in the morning, cuz.
And if you take the forecast on Wall Street at where they are right now at face value, they see that core PCE number up near 3% for most of the first 3 quarters of this year. I personally have a problem with the futures market's probabilities being so high, given that the forecast for inflation remains elevated. So I think the Fed's ability to come to the rescue might be overstated here.
Yeah.
It looks like there's quite a storm, and they can't necessarily launch those Coast Guard boats, even though, of course, the Coast Guard does come to the rescue in terrible weather. But in any event, it's going to be tough for the Fed to ride to the rescue with these kinds of inflation numbers that are expected. Maybe they end up being wrong, but, you know, and the other problem you have here is you have retaliatory tariffs that could be coming down the pike. And as for certainty, I listened to the president. It sounded like there were 3 reasons for the tariffs. Bring manufacturing back to the U.S., get foreign countries to lower their tariff barriers, and raise revenue. In different forms, those kind of work against each other. Maybe you're hoping they're negotiated away, but then what happens to the goal of revenue and what happens to the goal of bringing back manufacturing to the U.S.? They sort of work in, there's a tension between those 3 goals that make it difficult to figure out exactly what the president wants here and whether some of this can go away.
All right, bear with me for 1 second, Steve. So I think the president declared an economic emergency, if I'm not mistaken. I think I heard Melissa use that term. It's clear that the president wants interest rates to be lower. He's made no bones about that in terms of what he has said and some of the comments that have been made through the administration.
Hey, y'all, we in a pickle.
Does this give him grounds to browbeat Jerome Powell during an economic emergency? We need rates to be lower, and if he does not acquiesce, is that grounds then for dismissal? Just throwing it out there.
First of all, you're assuming that President Trump needs grounds to browbeat Powell. I don't think he needs grounds. He'll do it if he feels like it, and he has in the past. He can do it if he wants because of a weakness. But I just think you got to put yourself in Powell's shoes, right?
Hey,
is he gonna be
my old head said,
the political will
he's a freaking, he said the other word. He said this dude's a fucking idiot.
Powell will not be Burns. I'm positive about that.
Bruh!
Powell, in the fury of the final hour, as Jackson Brown sung, he will model Volcker. If he is faced with
we in a pickle.
Growth, but also stronger inflation, he'll probably hold for a while. But if it looks like that inflation persists, I think he's going to ignore the weakness and he's going to address the inflation.
Agree with you 100%. But I get maybe I didn't make
It could be grounds for dismissal. I don't know.
Well, that's my point. Because if it's an economic emergency, and if he's holding his ground, is that by definition grounds for dismissal?
Well,
if the president
it's supposed to be malfeasance, guy, and I don't
know.
I'm
with you, Steve. I'm 100%
That's for
with
the
you.
court to decide, I guess, at some point. I know that Powell has lawyers for all this.
Steve Leesman be trying to like out-talk people.
I don't think he would resign. I think he would make Trump.
Well, it ain't about us winning or losing. It's response to what's happening. We in a pickle. You got to realize, bro just put tariffs on everybody.
Thanks so much for being with us tonight, dissecting all of this.
Right? Bro just put tariffs on everybody. It's raining?
Interesting commentary in terms of the sort of...
Bro just put, it's not even about winning energy. Just, man, you got to alter. Bro just put heavy tariffs on everybody. And I mean everybody. You can't even go to another country. He's smacking you over. This is the worst of the worst case scenario. Right? Like, they had an idea what worst case scenario was. He exceeded that. You know what I'm saying? So you gotta pivot. You gotta take a L. Whatever you got. I gotta go take a couple L's in the morning. I gotta take a couple L's in the morning. Big L's too. I can't even get away from them. And you gotta pivot a different way. So it's not about just saying it's a win-win. You looking at what's in front of you. We just saw the market just drop, bro. We saw the market reverse 3% in 5 minutes. And here's what you know is gonna happen. Here's what you know is gonna happen. Here's what you know is gonna happen. People like China, all them people. Now here's the thing. I agree. I agree that we paying a lot of people a lot of money unnecessarily. 100%. I agree with that. What's up?
CEO, so you weren't.
No, I'm everywhere. Right? I agree with that. We paying a whole, like when you look at, if those numbers are correct that they showed, if the numbers that they show are correct, like we paying a lot of people a lot of money. We can't get around that. We can't, you know what I'm saying? Like, think about it. Okay. We paying China 67%. We paying, now that's if these numbers are legit. You know what I'm saying? So this says that between trade barriers and tariff, we paying China 67% on, we paying a 67% tariff on China for everything that's coming through. There's no way you can get money off that. There's no way. And at the same time, China's saying, and we don't want y'all stuff over here. Yeah, that's the issue. Right? Like, you feel me? We're paying China, like China taxing 67% for us to hustle over there. And then most of our companies can't go over there. So he said, all right, bro, we're gonna charge y'all 34. Nah, what I am saying is like, I've never had to run a country before. Right? So I don't know if, I'm not the person to say this right or wrong. What I am saying, people saying, well, it's cheaper to make goods in China. Is it really? It may be cheaper, but what is the bigger picture though, is what I'm asking. You feel what I'm saying? The bigger picture is, this how they get into that situation where they become the country they are, because at one point they wasn't the leading manufacturer. But what happened was they start having cheap manufacturing, and then what happened was all our countries went over there. So when all your countries over here start manufacturing over there or getting goods and service from over there, it takes away from the economy over here. That ain't being biased. That's just saying, that's facts. Yes, so Chinese companies are paying tariffs, but they're not paying nearly as much as we're paying, is what I'm saying. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, and so that's, you know how a lot of times people get tricked out of stuff when they start saying it's cheaper over there, or it's cheaper such and such. The problem is you're looking at what's in front of you and not the long term, right? So I'm not saying this was the answer, but I'm saying Vietnam, they got a 90% tariff on us. We just saw last night that chicken and all that coming from there, right? 90% tariff. Yeah, they got it. But what happens in the long run? Because what happens is everybody starts saying, I can go get it cheaper over here. I can go get it cheaper over here. And what happens when you no longer have manufacturing in America at all? Now, I'm not saying this is the right way to go about doing it. I think there's a diplomatic approach that can happen. You feel what I'm saying? But we looking at it from a, I'm not even talking about the market at this point. Like, the market gonna do what the market gonna do. We gotta freaking adjust. It is what it is. Like, we in the market, we signed up for this shit. You know what I'm saying? And we in the stock market, we signed up for this, y'all. Like, you can't run away from it. You know what I'm saying? We signed up for it. But all I'm saying is that you looking at this. The Philippines is charging a 34% tax. Chile, a 10% tax. Australia, 10%. Pakistan. Now, here's the crazy part about that. How much stuff you know, then every person that got a clothing line, like we got our stuff from Colombia. Let me see if they're not even on here. But so many people go to Pakistan to get their clothing line, to get their clothes, and I'm going to Pakistan, right? You go look in the chat, and anybody chat right now, that's what they be saying. Hey, I got a factory in Pakistan. I got a factory in Pakistan, right? Look at Pakistan doing us. Pakistan, 58% tariff. Sri Lanka, 88. What the hell are we getting from Sri Lanka? 88% tariff. Indonesia. You done seen stuff with Indonesia on it. Indonesia charges a 64% tariff. Malaysia, 47%. South Korea, 50%. India, 52%. Japan, 46%. Taiwan, 64%. Vietnam, 90%. So here's what I'm saying. If the company moves back, the cost of the product goes up multifold. Business profit decreases. Okay, L. Johnson, I get that. But let's think long run. What happens when America no longer produces anything in America, and now the dollar that you use in America, the safety that you have in America is no longer there? That's what I'm saying. You're right. You're right. You are absolutely right. No one is making t-shirts in the U.S. cheap. You are absolutely right. But you know why they're not making them cheap? It's because we initially allowed stuff to go over. And now so much, it's just like with anything. Once you do it a little bit, it just gets humongous. And now, think about it. America is supposed to be the greatest economy that there is, right? But 60 to 70% of the stuff in America get made outside of America. How? Now, again, I am 100% not saying what Bruh just did was right. That was crazy. But I've never had to run a country before. And that's what a lot of people, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think you tell it better by endless job. I don't know what you're saying, right? That's what I'm saying. People aren't going to be able to get anything, furniture, food, anything. This is crazy. Okay, you might have a point. And I think you're wrong. I think people will be. But here's what I will tell you. What happens when China becomes the dominant country and they really become, like, we not using the US dollar no more. We not using anything no more, right? What happens then? Right? What happens then when you can, all right, watch this. What happens when you can buy stuff, but now you under sanctions from China? You under sanctions, you go look up what that is. When you under Chinese sanctions or you under Russian sanctions, what happens when you got to operate under that? That what you don't, you know what I'm saying? You feel me? So that's what I'm saying. So I'm not saying that was the route, like bro went on a full on tantrum just now. He went on him and whoever put this list together went crazy. They went crazy. Him and whoever, you know what I'm saying? Whoever put this list together, they went crazy. But here's the thing I do know. You crying about a $37, you crying about a 37 trillion trap. We are the biggest consumers in the world. This is why they will come to the table. They need other. So that you took the words of what I was about to get to. This is what I was about to get to. Thank you for saying that. So here's what I was about to get to. You don't own anything. Basically, you buy gold. Gotcha. We've been doing that to people for years. Oh, Lord, not extensions. Extension, it's a fact. So here's what I'm saying. The American consumer, you know what's one of the greatest things about being, and again, let me say this again. I am not no way, shape, form, or fashion saying what that happened was the right move to make. But what I will say is this. The reason why the American economy or landscape had been so great is because people come to America and like, damn, you can buy these luxury goods. You could come to America and be, you know what I'm saying, whatever you want to be. You know what I'm saying? You come to America and do all that. Right? Again, a lot of companies aren't allowed in China. A lot of our goods are not allowed in Europe. It's just the facts. But yet we allow almost everything over here. Right? We allow almost everything over here. Right? So here's one thing I know for sure. Here's what I know for sure. You take the American consumer out of those, you take the American product from out of those countries, you take the American consuming dollar out of some of those things, and let's see how the economy does without the American consumer purchasing. You feel me? Let's see how the economies thrive without the American dollar. Because somewhere, you know what I'm saying? You gotta think about it. We charge China 2.2% and they charging us 67%. Right? We charge Europe 3%, they charge us 40%. And that's on top of the value add tax, the VAT tax. I can't give you no free stocks, man. How am I gonna give you a free stock? You feel me? So I'm not mad at the idea of tariffs, but I don't know. And if you're in the market, yo, we signed up for it. So what you saying is like boycotting other countries? No, it's making them say, stop charging us so much. Tim Cook said we don't even come close to China in skilled labor for manufacturing. He said it isn't the cost of the labor, but the skill of the labor that worries he won't be able to give. So watch this. You know why? So here's the thing. China is a manufacturing country. Here's what happened. They positioned themselves to be. You don't become the biggest manufacturer just because you can just make stuff, because you give skilled manufacturing at a cheap price. Now, here's the thing. That comes to American infrastructure. What has to happen now is America has to start training skilled labor. America has to start training skilled labor. And so some of the stuff that but this is something that has happened ongoing. We keep on selling the American consumer. Oh, we getting this in. And now it done stacked up to a point where we about to, you know what I'm saying? You done ran up a $37 trillion. So now you got to find ways to get money. You got to find ways to knock that bill down. So you got to start training workers. Tim Cook, you got to start saying, what does it take to create an iPhone? Yada, 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 yada. Hey, this is what kind of skilled workers. We need skilled technology. We need skill. You start training skill. That's what China does. They train workers to be, hey, watch this. But you can't go to China and have the opportunities that you have in America. So that's the thing. So, you know what I'm saying? So people say, how in education is free in other countries? We got to start persisting. It goes down the rabbit hole of things that you have to do. It puts America in a situation, from my perspective, where you can't just say, hey, Harvard is $50 million a year. Hey, what y'all teaching people over there? We need skilled labor, bro.
It's gonna make us better students.
Yeah, you got to become better. That's me looking at it from the lens of, if you want to bring factory work over here, if you want to bring that, you got to start creating the skilled labor. You know what I'm saying? That's it. LOL, we push AI, now we pushing skilled labor. Either or, bro. Trump doesn't attack. He holds past administrations accountable, unlike mainstream media. It looked like he just attacked just now. Angelica, I said it before, all great minds think alike. When they open these new factories, they'll be running by robots instead of people. I think you'll have a mixture. Exactly. So now that I agree with, we are 100% behind because we don't train skilled workers. Yeah. We are behind. But I'm gonna tell you why. Because we start buying the stuff from the cheap. That's what happened. When you start saying I can get it from a cheaper price over here, you start not training people to.
It's tough love.
Are you thinking of taking the L on your June, July options call, Trap? I don't know. If I make an answer right now, it's an emotional response. This has to be done whether you have the foresight to see, have the inner city school focus on technology. That is. We're far behind China. I'm not disagreeing with you on that, but here's why we are. They built their economy on labor, skilled labor. A tax on the U.S. people, not the other country. Aren't tariffs? It works in both ways. It's a tax on the people, it's a tax on the product, and it's a tax on a company. Yep, this not no overnight process. This not no overnight process for sure. Y'all gotta realize the old America dead. The old America been dead. The old America been dead. China and US will negotiate. I think they're gonna be negotiations, but the market gonna get beat up until they do. The minds that are in control are not and have not been working about the everyday person in America. I can't think for the minds that's in control, bro. I can only think for mine. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I don't try to be one. Don't leave Africa out of the equation. China is working with, very close with African countries. Of course they are. China play chess. Trap, no more than pep talk for the thing we voted on a Zoom call. I vetoed the vote. I vetoed the vote. Better hop on his live. I think the market just has to settle. That's all. This is just an emotional response. I think the market just has to settle a little bit, man. I think we will open down, but I just think the market has to settle. That antibiotics took me out. Antibiotics. The antibiotics. Even if the U.S. builds a highly skilled manufacturing workforce, the wages need to be dramatically higher. I agree with that. Coming up, a check on 3 key industries set to feel the impact of the latest round of tariffs. We'll get the read on autos, pharma, and housing next. More Fast Money right after this. All right, man. So I just wanted to lock in with y'all, man. Have a conversation with y'all. I'll answer some questions and then we'll get out of here, man. I had my team here long. You know, they wanted to do this live with us. We wanted to get in here. We wanted to just talk to y'all. We wanted to, you know, have some conversation. Let's see. Let me ask a couple. Trap, you do the best impressions of Trump? Listen, antibiotics. It's going to be a great country. They've been taxing us. It's time for us to quit taxing. We're going to be wealthier than we've ever been. We're going to be stronger than we've ever been. It is what it is. New prudent mom, go to work, please, and play puts. Does China have a stock market? Of course. Does this mean more red days? I think so. Thanks, Jose. We going to be rich? Of course. Appreciate the comment we needed. Who win in the NBA Finals? I have no idea. It won't be so much of a profit margin with the folks on the top. They will be, I don't know, it went too fast. Trap, do you trade futures? No. China has 3.5 trillion cash USDA. I'd have to look at that to figure it out. Do you have any mentors who have navigated through something like this? Shit, this the first for all. Do you think it will be reversed by Trap, appreciate you hopping on. For sure, man. Walmart down 6%. I'm going to bear market, I don't know. Trump said we'll have so much money we won't know what to do with it. How long you think the market will get beat up? Man, we was having a great goddamn on April. April was turning out to be a good month, and then Orange Man, he just had, he did his thing. Yeah, he did his thing. He did his big one. I'll tell you that. He did his big one. So. Let me see. Trap, I'm in the bind. Yeah, we all in the bind with that one. Trap, what do you think the Fed does on Friday? I don't think the Fed can save us out of this one. I'm not even gonna lie. How do you get in the Patreon? Jose, draw that in there, man. If the U.S. is 37 trillion in debt and China has 3 trillion U.S., who has more money? I don't think China has, but China's economy is not that great either. Hold on, y'all, right quick.
Silver, and then energy and other certain minerals. So relief for those industries, but I would also caution, Melissa, that it is temporary. A White House official had told us earlier that the reason most, if not all, of these goods are currently
Tariff exemptions include gold, copper, pharma, semiconductors, and lumber.
in particular, the investigations into copper and lumber are already ongoing. The tariffs could come quickly. So once those tariffs come, those will affect those goods. But in the meantime, and for now, they are not subject to these reciprocal tariffs, no matter where they're coming from. Melissa?
Okay. Megan, thank you. Megan Casella from the White House. We've got reporters on the deck ready to dig into all these ripple effects. Diana Olick will break down housing. Angelica Peebles will hit healthcare, but we'll start off with Phil LeBeau, who's tracking the automakers. Phil.
And these auto tariffs, Melissa, they're in effect. So the first payments as vehicles are brought into the country tomorrow, it happens tomorrow. That's when we will start to see the impact for automakers. Now, we won't see it as consumers. A reminder, these are 25% tariffs on vehicles brought into this country, manufactured outside this country. Last year, that was about 7.38 million vehicles, and nobody's quite sure how much the potential impact would be. Could be $4,000 to $8,000. That is a complete estimate at this point from many in the industry. The expectation is that we will see the impact on the lower end of the market. And the folks at Cox Automotive broke down the market share by transaction price. So there you see, 40% of the vehicles sold last year in this country went for under $40,000. That is the area, Melissa, where many believe you will see the automakers really feel the pain about whether or not it's worth.
So a car that costs between 40 and 60 grand is going to feel it the most.
Mexico or Canada, that sells in that price range there. Quickly, as you take a look at the auto stocks, they've been all over the place over the last month or so, but under pressure for the most part today. They are looking to increase U.S. production. Let's be clear about this. Whether that's increasing the run rate at a particular plant right now, using some of the excess capacity that is there. That
Antonio, nope.
Right
I don't see it, bro.
Automakers in this country or who have facilities in this country. We'll see how this shakes out over the weeks to come, Melissa.
All of those estimates in terms of how much this will impact the price of an auto, Phil, that is just based solely on the car being manufactured overseas and doesn't factor in the fact now that we know that USMCA compliant goods are still not tariffed.
Correct. That is correct. And look, that's part of the details and the clarification that the automakers have been seeking. They're still pushing for other exemptions, if you will, that would continue to bring down the potential cost.
All right. Phil, thanks. Phil LeBeau. Let's get to Angelica, who's got the latest on pharma. Angelica.
Hey, Melissa, well, you just heard from Megan that it sounds like pharma is exempt from these reciprocal tariffs, which is a big win for the industry, although, like she said, it could be temporary because we might get these sector-specific tariffs. And you heard in his speech multiple times, Trump called out medicines. He said that, we need more medicines made here and that companies need to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. or else they're going to face a tax. And people have been really nervous about these reciprocal tariffs because we import about 1/3 of our prescription drugs by dollar value, and many of the most expensive drugs are coming from Europe. So some of the branded products that we get from companies like Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, AbbVie, they're all coming from Europe. And then on the generic side, many of those are coming from India. And so that's why there was so much worry going into this announcement. But again, it sounds like this exemption might just be short-lived.
You need a group for us still in the joint. Shit, you could get in any one of the groups, family.
The 36% number in terms of the amount of drugs being imported in, those are finished drugs as opposed to the raw ingredients that are brought into the country to make the drug here? Because that's much more, isn't it?
Yeah, and so that's where the details do really matter. That number, yes, is for the drugs that we're importing, and then when you look at the specifics, there's so many different categories, and even drugs, they're crossing borders multiple times. So drug, the API, the active pharmaceutical ingredient, might be made in one place, and then it might the drug substance might be made in another, and then it could be finished and filled in another place. So there's a lot of cross-border movement, and again, that was why there was so much confusion and concern about what would happen here. Would it be taxed from Ireland or from China, from India? Where were these things going to be, that country of origin? And so that was the risk there.
All right, Angelica, thank you. Angelica Peebles. And finally, we turn to Diana for a look at building materials. Diana.
Well, Melissa,
This is the last one I wanted to see.
25% tariffs on goods from Canada and Mexico, which was paused for USMCA compliant goods, including lumber and drywall, will continue on pause indefinitely. So that's a bright spot for the builders. Lumber futures dropped on that news, but other goods will see big price hikes. A lot of new math will have to be done now, but estimates were that tariffs could add anywhere from $9,000 to $25,000 to the cost of a new home, depending on the home size and its price point. Roughly 70% of construction input costs are for goods, and 1/4 of those goods are imported. 40% of appliances are imported, nearly half of them from Canada, which will now see combined 54% tariff. Whirlpool may be an American company, but 20% of the agitators in their washing machines, they come from China and Mexico. 40% of ceramic tiles for your kitchen and bath are imported. 80% of luxury vinyl flooring, half of that from China. Plumbing fixtures and valves, much of that also comes from China. Now, in addition, 20% of construction workers in the U.S. are foreign, and that's the highest of any other sector, so that comes on top of those added costs for materials. Melissa?
Wow, Diana, thank you. Diana Olick. So as we look at the sector declines across the board, we ran through some of the stocks are being hit very hard in the after-hour session. How do we think about this as we hear the reporters outline what the potential impacts could be?
Today, when the market opened down nearly 1%, some of the first stocks that went up were Netflix, Spotify, so some of our digital companies. And you think about them, like those two names in particular, more than 50% of their sales come from outside the U.S. But traditionally, Europe, they don't target like streaming services like that. So you might see maybe those things exempt. The other one, man, you want to see a stock, an ETF chart that looks like it wants the what guy? Party. Yeah, that would be the XLU. They have no exposure outside the U.S.
All right, man. That's us for the day, man. We love y'all. We appreciate y'all for tapping in with us today, man. We just wanted to get in and watch some of this news with y'all, man. Let us know how you feel. Let us know how you feel about us doing shows like this. You know what I'm saying? We want to try to do this a little bit more. Just tapping in and hopping on when stuff going on in the market. Other than that, man, we love y'all. You want to come join the Patreon? Definitely, we got some work to do up in there with this. We got to navigate this. Trappers Anonymous, huh? A house? The average house an average new home can go from $9,000 to $25,000. Yeah. That's what we doing. All right, man. We love y'all. Man, we'll see y'all next Tuesday, same time, same place. You know what I'm saying? Come catch us in the trap. You heard me? We love y'all. We appreciate y'all, man. Hey, trade safe, invest safe. You know what I'm saying? Trade safe, invest safe, man. You know what I'm saying? All right, man. We out, man. We love y'all.